We hope you and your family are enjoying back to school season. Visit queenslibrary.org to see all of our back to school programs and giveaways, and to read our back to school guide, full of helpful information and resources for you and your family as you prepare for the upcoming school year. Every year, Hispanic Heritage Month celebrates the achievements of Hispanic Americans and their contributions to our nation and our culture. Explore our virtual and in-person programs, discover our special Hispanic Heritage book lists for all ages, grab a copy of our Hispanic Heritage brochure from your local library, and don't miss our Tapiz Cultural Art Exhibit at Central Library. Visit queenslib.org/blog to learn more. Banned Books Week is September 22nd through September 28th, and it is more important than ever to stand against censorship and celebrate the freedom to read. Check out our book lists, our upcoming programs, and our Banned Books Library Card Design Contest. The winning selection will be featured on QPL's first Banned Books Special Edition Library Card. For more information, visit queenslibrary.org. It's Library Card Sign-Up Month. A Queens Public Library card is your key to everything the library has to offer. More than 5 million books, movies, and other media, over 40,000 classes and events per year, more than 5,000 computer workstations all across Queens, and so much more. Visit our website or one of our branches today to apply for your QPL card.
Good evening. This is Dan Zaleski, and welcome to Culture Connections Hispanic Heritage Edition. Culture Connection, curated by Dan Zaleski and assisted by Liz Keoghan, and now in its 11th year at the Queens Public Library, is proud to present international artists from emerging talent to award-winning masters. These disciplines include music, theater, author talks, and film. Now expanding into a virtual format, Culture Connection is currently reaching a global audience. Tonight, we have a really incredible special treat, and with Tanya Leon, legends, and David Ramir Gonzalez. So I'm going to start off with first introducing Tanya. Her biography is very, very extensive, and then David Ramir Gonzalez. So then we're going to be in conversation and talking all things music and Cuba and Hispanic heritage. So, and then we'll have questions, for Q&A at the end. So think of what you want to ask these incredible artists. So let me start off with Tanya Leon's biography, which is, I had to shrink it down because it's so extensive. So incredibly impressive. Cuban-born composer and conductor Tanya Leon is renowned for being both multicultural and polystylistic. She won the Pulitzer Prize for Music for her orchestral work, Stride, in 2021. And the following year, Leon was given the Kennedy Center Honor for Lifetime Artistic Achievements. Leon is also a distinguished music educator and advisor to arts organizations. In 2023, she was awarded the Michael Ludwig Demers Prize in Music Composition from Northwestern University. Most recently, Leon became the London Philharmonic Orchestra's next composer in residence. She is also holding Carnegie Hall's Richard and Barbara Debs Composer's Chair for its 2023-2024 season. Leon was born in Havana, Cuba, into a multicultural family. Encouraged by her grandmother, she began piano lessons at age 4. Subsequently, Leon earned a BA degree at Cuba's best music conservatories, studying piano. In 1967, She took one of the so-called freedom flights from Cuba to the U.S., started under President Johnson. Leon continued her education at New York University. She also studied under the direction of Leonard Bernstein at Tanglewood at Tanglewood. In 1969, she became a co-founder of the Dance Theater of Harlem with Arthur Mitchell and established its music department, school, and orchestra. She wrote several ballets for the group as well. Leon also developed her conducting career, establishing the Community Concert Series of the Brooklyn Philharmonic in 1978. She has appeared as guest conductor with many prestigious ensembles, including the New York Philharmonic. She was also Latin American advisor to the American Composers Orchestra, which premiered her orchestral work Desde in 2001. Leon's opera, Scourge of Hyacinths, has been performed more than 20 times in Europe. Leon's works include chamber music, orchestral works, vocal and solo piano pieces. Some 40 of her compositions had been recorded by the early 2020s. Leon has taught at Brooklyn College and CUNY Graduate Center here in New York City, and was a visiting professor at Harvard, Yale, and Musikschule in Hamburg, Germany. She has so many awards and honorariums that we can't fill. It would go over the hour. So, but this will all be included in the links, so you can read much more about her. And then so now we're moving on to David Gonzalez. David started his professional career as a pianist and composer at the age of 16. With the member of Oscar Valdez Afro-Cuban Jazz Ensemble. And he received the highest awards at Havana in Joe Jazz Festival in 2004 and 2005, and other Cuba Disco Awards for his 2007 debut album, De Vermeer Habana and Trances, before proceeding to Berklee College of Music as the first Cuban National Presidential Scholarship recipient. Since completing his education, he has performed in 15,000-seat stadiums with legends Chuchu Valdez and Bibo Valdez, and headlined Carnegie Hall as a representative of the young generation of Afro-Cuban jazz artists. In recent years, with multiple recorded albums in his portfolio, De Ramirez developed an international following, with clubs, concert halls, and festival appearances throughout North and South America, as well as Europe. A United States citizen, David Ramirez still performs annually in Cuba at the legendary Jazz Plaza Festival in Havana, while staying close to his cultural and creative roots. And of course, he's been a guest here at Culture Connection, I think, half dozen times. So welcome, David Ramirez and Gonzalez and Tanya Leon. Welcome to Culture Connection. I'm thrilled to have you. So,
muchas gracias, Dan, for the invitation. Thank you, Culture Connection.
Yes.
Maestra.
So it's going to be, I guess, a little bit of a free flow conversation, as we discussed, right? So, I guess I have a list of questions here, and I guess David Ramirez, you think of additional things, we'll just add to the conversation. How does that sound?
Of course. Yeah.
Everybody, okay, everybody's good. Okay, so Tanya, so one of my, and I should also mention that this book is on order. Tanya Leon's Stride by the author Alejandro Madrid, which is quite an excellent book, and it is on order for purchase here at the Queen's Library. So we should have it, hopefully by next month, so our public can access it, because I really recommend it. It's really fascinating read, and so informative and so rich. So, can you, Tanya, can you tell us about your mother and grandmother's impact on you musically? Maybe we'll start off as your young memories, and because I read that you, 4 years old, you're at the piano, and so can you just tell us, those childhood memories of music and how it all started?
Well, it's the only thing that I can say is recount what my grandmother told me, and that is that I come from a very poor family, so they at that time they brought a radio, and I was totally fascinated with the radio, and I would just flip around looking for the stations, and every time that there was something with music, I would dance to the music that I heard, and she noticed that I was dancing exactly into the rhythm of what I was listening to. And if I would sing what was happening in the radio, I would sing exactly the same pitches. So she was so fascinated about the whole thing that she rushed me to a conservatory. And the conservatory, they said that they didn't want to take me because I didn't know how to read and write. And I was not even in kindergarten yet.
Ooh.
And the thing is that my grandmother was very resilient, very insistent. And then she probably, I mean, she probably turned them crazy or something like that, because, she will be going every week. You have to take her. You have to take her. And the thing is that finally they took me, and they were concerned because how would I learn the theory? So my grandmother in Cuba basically is very sorry. So therefore, and we don't have, at least in my household, we didn't have a drying machine, for the clothes and things like that. So she had to actually go to the top of the building and put a line with the clothes. So she would take me with her, and she made me memorize the answers of the book of theory. So when I would go back to the conservatory, if they asked me a specific question, I knew the answer, not because I knew, it's because I memorized it. And I think that is one of the reasons why I love poetry, because what I did, it was recite the answer. And of course, the teachers were very impressed. But it was actually because my grandmother insisted until I would actually remember. And that's how the whole story began. So that's all I know. I don't have consciousness of that. What I have is a story of what happened and how got into this. And once I'm the first musician in my family, so once I started, then everybody got in. Everybody was part of the Tania project. Let me put it that way. And to the point that my mother also memorized the pieces, because she would go to the conservatory and she would hear the whole thing also. So if I was home, either my mother or my grandmother, which were the ones that were usually there all the time, if I made a mistake, they said, "You made a mistake," because they have heard. Incredible. My mother would tell the people about the Schumann Concerto, Opus 54. It was something else. They really got into it.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank goodness they did, right? And so here, so we're all thankful that they gave you that.
It is important because, like we said, that not only having the talent is important for the kid, it's also to have a household that is also suitable to have that talent flourish. If you have a broken household that is in fire, or you don't have really the space to be there to see, that talent can also disappear. So she was very, very lucky in that sense.
Yeah, the support was incredible, I must say. And my grandfather, when I was 5, he actually bought a second-hand piano. Every time I think about it, I said, were they nuts? To buy a kid that is 5 years old.
Well, yeah, they obviously they saw something, right? They, they saw a future for you in music, so that's beautiful. Really, it's quite beautiful. So, yeah. So now, we're gonna have like a little excerpt from your composition "Stride." How does that sound? Well,
Wonderful. Yes.
you can cue it up, and then I guess we can, you can explain it, and that of course, it's you'll give out more detail after we see it. But Stride was this is the work you won the Pulitzer Prize for in just 2 years ago, correct? And was it quite recently, and and this was so the theme behind it is the 19th Amendment, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is so Eve, if you could cue up the Stride video, and then we'll let Tanya, explain it in further detail. Does that sound good?
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. Brava.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah. So amazing.
I know. I'll explain that to you. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna let you, say what, tell us about it. So, in your own words.
Yeah, well, I was called by the person that was actually in charge at the time as the CEO. That was Deborah Borda, which have done a lot for composers that happen to be women. And then when she actually took the position, she called me and she told me that she had this idea about commissioning 19 women in order to celebrate the 19th Amendment. That gave the women the right to vote. And of course, I got very interested, and she wanted me to be one of the first premieres of the entire program.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I didn't know that much about Susan B. Anthony, which was actually the leader that made this possible with the women that actually supported her and the effort. And so therefore, I studied her biography. I even visited her house on Zoom. I didn't go there,
Mm-hmm.
but and I read the proclamation and how much she actually insisted on this happening. So that was my inspiration. Also, it was inspiring me because I know about some resilience that women have in general. And actually, I connected with my mother and my grandmother in terms of the way that they actually face all of the ups and downs, that I saw while I was actually growing up. And then I wrote the piece. And in the middle of the piece, while I was writing, I sort of like connected with something that was very powerful that I saw upon my arrival in the United States. And it was actually that I saw Martin Luther King doing the marches, on television. And so therefore, and she marched with the women also. Every time that there's a petition about something, that the people march,
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, I don't know if you heard that there's something like Zoom, Zoom, right? That I decided to do that with all of the basses and the percussion with something that is like a sand block, in order to give that impression that there are shoes on a ground, zoom, that, right? And so because I don't know, all of a sudden I was writing and I heard that in my head, and I connected with all of those marches, and I say, well, this is going to be getting into starts at the middle of the piece, and it really lasts until the end of the piece. And at the end of the piece, you really have sort of like the assertiveness of the proclamation, and the bells. There are 19 bells what they're playing. However, at the end, after the celebration of the bells, you have sort of like I decided to do something to address the fact that even that happened, the women of color were the last ones to receive such a recognition that they could vote as well. So therefore, that's why the piece ends up with a fracture of one of the claves of the African polyrhythmia, you see? So everything ends. However, you hear this sort of like thing that, wait a minute, there's something that is missing. Or, I wanted to give it presence, a specific presence, and that's how the piece ends.
We've certainly accomplished that. It's very profound and powerful, and just really ties in so wonderfully with the theme of the 19th Amendment, and how it's just a progression. How it started with one race of people, but then that needed to be expanded to other races.
What program you use to score the piece? Sibelius or Final?
Oh, well, I write things, I still use the paper and pencil because, I have a connection with a paper that that is very unique. At least, I feel that I'm doing it, and then it's transferred to Sibelius. That's because it's to extract the parts and everything. Once you have the score. Yeah.
But you also do the Sibelius work, or that's somebody else do?
I do a little bit of it. I'm not an expert, but I can input. Yes.
Yeah. And so now, can you tell us just a little, because I loved like little footnotes on stories too, like, since where were you when you found out that you'd won the Pulitzer, and what was your reaction, and who was there somebody you told first, or can you share that? Or?
This is very interesting because I don't tend to apply to any competition or anything. I've never done it. I don't do it, And but the things that have happened to me is because someone else have nominated me, so therefore I found out right after the whole thing who nominated me, because I was so intrigued. I mean, who did this?
Yeah, who? We want to know.
It's like the same thing about the Kennedy Center. I don't know. So I have no idea who did that one.
No, now, right?
But no, I mean, the day that they announced, the Pulitzer Prize surprises everybody. They don't send an announcement or get in touch with the people that want it. They just announce it. You see?
So it goes straight to the papers, newspaper.
It says to the press. So I was at the dentist when this was happening.
Wow.
I mean, I came out from the dentist, came home. My phone was turned off because, I mean, now doctors don't want you to have your phone on when you are there. And when I turn my phone on, I see these big message of congratulations from another composer called Frank Otteri. And I called Frank and I said, Frank, congratulations about what? you know? And he teased me for about 5 minutes. He said, "Oh, you don't know? I mean, what's the matter with you? What happened? You don't know what happened?" And then finally he said, "Tanya, you got the Pulitzer Prize. And if you don't believe me, go visit the site."
Mm-hmm.
And then I visited the site and I saw my picture there and I saw the big announcement. That's how I found out. And of course, every time that something like this happens, I connect again to my primary beginnings, I mean, so it usually gets me very sentimental because I remember my grandmother and mother and everything that they did, and
yeah.
the little that they knew, spiritually speaking, I believe in the power of the spirit, they probably know, but yeah.
It's a beautiful story, and
yeah
beautiful story, and beautiful, just a powerful, profound piece of music that's deserving of serious recognition. So congratulations. Yeah.
And the one that actually nominated me was my publisher.
I see.
Yeah. Later on he said it was me, so it's my credit. I said, okay. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just so amazing. So I guess we're not doing things, this is kind of more conversational, so we're not going in any kind of strict chronological order, just kind of like as things come up. So I guess one of the things I had written down here, so part of your, I guess, education and life experience, you were at the Tanglewood Festival, and I understand from your book, you had, with Leonard Bernstein, had done a workshop. So, and then there's also, because it's kind of a little bit of two-part, and then if you could, because there was the recent biopic Maestro with Bradley Cooper.
Yeah.
So you've probably seen that, right?
Yes, I saw
movie.
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe if you could talk about your working relationship with Leonard Bernstein, and then the second part is maybe just to see, like, does that movie, does it give you kind of like a sense of who Bernstein was compared to the way you remembered him?
Well, I mean, he was a very passionate teacher. And I remember, one of the scores that I studied with him, which later on he gave me the score and signed it for me in Spanish. He wrote in Spanish, todo bueno, And he was amazing. And studying that piece with him, he didn't stop until actually he said, no, you have to have the sea in front of you and a wave is coming to you, and that's how you have to conduct the whole thing. I mean, he was tremendous, and very personal, very warm, loved all his students. And I can tell you that I was actually, I don't know, it was a privilege or it was an honor that I was in touch with him and close with him until he passed. So I know his children. I've been in his house at the Dakota many times, went to concerts together. I mean, and, he gave me a lot of support. And I conducted the concert of his 70th birthday. I was one of the conductors. He wanted me to be part of the team. And I was not disappointed about the film, because the film is actually not so much about the music and that he was a great musician, but he was a human being. And that is what the film is expressing. And that is the human being that I remember, And
Beautiful.
yeah. He, I mean, one of the gatherings, after our lessons and things like that, we were celebrating, and he asked to have Latin music because he wanted to dance with me. And then there we were dancing in the middle of that, having a great time, So this is the kind of person that I really was very impressed about his humanity and the way that he embraced everybody. Yeah.
Beautiful. And and especially since West Side Story is such a thick,
Yeah.
on all these levels, and how he really incorporated certain aspects of Latin music into his score.
Yeah.
And how as far as like the general American culture, people living on the farm and wherever in Kansas, or not just New York City, but these far-flung places, the Dakotas, or California, kind of gave a sense of that energy and that rhythm,
that
life-affirming passion, right?
Very much, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So beautiful. So I guess another question, to bring it like when we spoke on the phone. So to bring it a little bit of a local feel to it. So because you had resided for a period of time, I'm not sure exactly. You'll tell us a little bit more, but I believe was it Jackson Heights, Queens.
Yes.
Queens County. So and De Ramirez resided in Queens County also.
Oh, really?
So maybe So if you both both of you can touch on this aspect, because obviously it's one of the most culturally and linguistically diverse counties in the United States.
Yes.
And so maybe each of you can, share like a little reminiscence about life here.
Yes.
And maybe just some of your places you love to go to on your free day off or something to that effect.
When I moved in my neighborhood, which was actually near, just blocks from the Roosevelt Avenue stop, that center of all the trains actually stop there. That neighborhood was basically German. There were Germans over there. There were actually a lot of Jewish people. I mean, that's when I moved in.
Yeah.
Then they sort of like migrated elsewhere. And then the Indians came in. I'm talking about Indians, from Bangladesh.
Yeah.
That's how I started eating masala dosa or kulfis. And, it was such an incredible juncture. And before that, then there was a mix between the Indians and then the Koreans came in.
Yes. Yeah.
About my immediate neighborhood, you see. But then if you walk, or I used to walk Roosevelt Avenue, with a train on top.
Oh, yeah.
Then you have all of these cultures and all, it's something that I still miss. I don't live there any longer. But sometimes I have to go there. And sometimes I have to go to Astoria to have some Greek food. It's just tremendous. It's a tremendous place. for culture, for community, for what we call diversity. That for me, the world have always been diverse. But it's
Mhm.
that's what we are deciding to speak about now. But that is the diversity with which I grew up in Cuba, because my neighborhood
Yes.
was like that, including my family.
Mhm.
People of different cultures, different races, different, you know,
Mhm.
the only thing is that, of course, we all were poor, but it didn't matter. you know,
Mhm.
in fact, that was the richness of the whole thing, that we were celebrating each other and sharing
Yes.
el cafecito, el arroz con leche. I mean, we share, you know,
Mhm.
that is something that I will never forget. Yeah. Mhm.
Beautiful. So I guess the other thing I had read that because your family tree is rather multicultural.
Yeah.
So can you tell us different branches of your family tree? I understand there's also Chinese ancestry,
Yeah.
African. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more European. Different branches of your family tree.
Well, I mean, we all are hybrid, regardless of how we look like. And that's my philosophy, you see, because when you visit your ancestry, there is now this program that Henry Louis Gates he
Mm-hmm.
does, and then he is able to tell people, okay, this is your lineage. And people are very, very surprised to see how many different, what we call race, are in one person. I mean, and for me, we are just specimens of the same species. It's called the human species. So, I mean, so there's nothing that is pure. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and and specifically now with all of the DNA analysis and things like that, is that people are finding out um, how many specimens of the species reside in one person. So right now, I am the sum total of all my ancestors. You know, my brother looks different. The kids now are different because the family keeps mingling with other races as well. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we don't have that. At least, this is the way I feel growing up in Cuba. I never had that type of situation discussing these things, not even in my family, you see.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother is the only one that was actually a straight line from the Africanos that came through the slave trade. Let me put it that way.
I
But my
see.
grandmother, I mean, her father, I mean, it's actually from Spain. Then, he got together with what you call the mulata, which is actually what we call a hybrid between um, what we call white and what we call black. So in other words, I mean, that mix is I mean, I don't call anybody anything. I
Mm-hmm.
people by their name and their last name. That's the best respect that we can have for another human being. I mean, I don't have anything to do with the categorization that we have about people, because that doesn't have anything to do with the essence of the person, you see. So
Beautiful.
and then my father, I mean, he is Chinese Cuban. That has to do with another migration. Because after the slaves, were emancipated, they didn't want to do certain jobs, and that is when the Chinese migration came to Cuba, and it's pretty big because Cuba have Chinatowns. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and and one of the things that actually people, the garden of people in the past, at least that's what I heard, they said that the Chinese actually created the Chinese mulata. You know.
Interesting. No, because one thing I remember when I first came to New York City, because my home state is New Jersey, so
Uh-huh.
it's not nearly as diverse. It's everything. It's a lovely colonial town.
Uh-huh.
But it's very it's very small. So your world review is not so expansive, shall we say? But I remember in New York City in the 1980s, the Chinese Cuban restaurants.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
was, yeah, and I was just like, you're at an age where it's like, I didn't know this existed, and of course I went to enjoy the really great food and, just the environment and the ambiance. And, that was all part of coming to New York City and, just discovering so many other, basically the world, right? It's like, this is it, no?
Yeah, sure.
So,
Yeah. So Dairamir, you also have frequented the Chinese neighborhood in, Calle Sanja,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah, in
you
Havana.
lived in Calle Salud, and that was only a few blocks from Chinatown. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, Chinatown and Havana have always been a go-to place to go and eat. It's always busy. Havana is always busy with a lot of people from Bang, a lot of ferries of
Yeah.
different things selling and stuff. And now you go there and it's more Cuban food than Chinese food. The fried rice now is Cuban rice. It's not no longer. You can find the fried rice, a little bit of rice and beans in there. But
Yeah.
it's always
wonderful. So, so I guess we're going to shift gears now, and then, many people might not realize that you, Tanya, are also connected to Broadway,
Oh, yes.
but that's part of your resume, right?
Yes. Yes,
And
it is.
I mean, hey, Broadway is like such a vital part of New York City, and the musical theater, and it's not just musical theater, but dramatic theater as well, but especially with the musical theater. And you had been in the original music conductor for the first production of The Wiz.
The Wiz at the production of Jeffrey Holder,
Mhm.
which was a spectacular opening because these men were actually standing on top of these things that sometimes you have in the carnival that they become very tall, and on top of that they had these big yellow wigs, they were in yellow. So when they came on stage, everybody was like, "Oh my God!" it was amazing. And the woman that did Dorothy, that was Stephanie Mills.
Stephanie Mills.
Yeah. Oh, it was a lot of fun. And the cast was tremendous.
And of course, famous singer Dee Dee Bridgewater was the original Glenda, right?
Yes.
And she's still rocking, no?
Yes.
I saw her recently at the Jazz at Lincoln Center.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and she was the host, the MC of the some of the winners from the Sarah Vaughan Jazz competition, the vocal competition. And she was the MC for that. But she did I think she did one of the song. Oh, she did the Sondheim song "Send in the Clowns."
Oh my God!
Can you believe that?
Yes.
And it just amazing. So that was my first time to see her, sing live, and what an experience. Yeah,
Yes.
and as I'm doing my research, because I know time is racing, but also I realized because you're also you were also connected to Tony DeMare, who did the Liaisons projects, correct?
Yes.
And another choreographer, Carlos Dos Santos, who's also performed at the Culture Connection.
Oh my God!
Can you believe that we know all these people in common?
Yes.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about your collaborations with Tony and Carlos a little bit?
Well, I was part of the composers that wrote a piece based on or influenced by Sondheim, and
Liaisons project.
Exactly, and he's the one that premiered it and is included in the CD with a collection of all of these pieces. And then Carlos Dos Santos, I did a ballet with him called Inura, and I had the privileged in a way to go to Salvador do Bahia. And
Oh,
Dairamir, have you been there?
No yet. I want
and
to go to
Brazil, right?
Brazil
You
so
have to
badly.
go. You have to go.
Especially about, especially Bahia, especially Bahia that is so
It's
close
amazing.
to us, so close.
Amazing place, amazing percussionists. And then they do the Escola de Samba on Saturday, and they go out in the street playing the samba. And everybody, you know, I mean, dances behind them. And
Yeah, well,
I wanted to get closer to the drums, as closer as possible. So I was
Ah.
there. I mean,
yeah,
dancing.
so yeah.
It was tremendous.
Yeah, let's book our tickets now. As soon as we get off the program, right? We'll book our tickets, right?
Great inspiration. Yes. Mhm.
Yeah. So, and Carlos was I believe he was originally with the Alvinelli Company.
Yes,
Yeah, Alvinelli.
and then he actually integrated himself with this dance company from Brazil. you
Yeah.
know? And that is actually the ballet that we did was for that dance.
hmm
Yeah. Mhm.
And so basically, so when he did come here to perform at the Culture Connection, so I had the idea, you know, of who Chungo is, right?
Uh-huh.
Chungo,
Yeah, well, we call it tango.
Chungo,
Yeah.
to do something based on Chungo, because that Chungo is celebrated on my birthday.
Oh, really? Is it the 4th of December?
Yes, it is.
Oh my God.
Can you believe that?
Yeah.
That's a very powerful thing, isn't it?
Yes, and my mother celebrated that because, I mean, she was a devotee of the saint called Saint Barbara.
Yes, Santa Barbara. Yeah.
Barbara, which is the Chango. In
And that's
fact,
Mhm.
I have my mother's Santa Barbara with me because, I mean, my mother passed away 10 years ago, and my brother kept the figure for me.
Mhm.
When I went to Cuba, I brought it with me.
Wonderful. Yeah, but so that's the day for my birthday also, the Santa Barbara and Chungo.
I remember now.
Yeah. Wow. So and then because I know we're going to ask the audience for questions also, if we have any people, drop them in the box, because we've got like about 12 minutes left, so we're going to ask the audience if they would like to pass on their questions. And then I guess there's one coming in now, and so I can present this to you. There's a question. Oh yeah, can you read it? As a woman in a historically male-dominated field, what challenges have you faced, and how have you overcome them?
Well, you know, there was a comment that actually Dairamir made before that had to do with support. And when I was growing up, it's interesting that my life have turned into what has happened, because my grandmother used to talk to me like a fairy tale person, you know. And she said, one day your name is going to be in the marquise of the theater. You know, I mean, my grandmother would tell me all of these things that she created, that she made me sort of like dream these things, you see. I mean, without knowing that it was going to happen. That happened, you see. And you have to understand that sometimes when I am getting to a theater and I see the name in the marquise of the you know, of a concert or something like that, that's what comes back to my mind. My grandmother telling me these things, that all of this happens, you see. And one of the things that have given me is a lot of resilience also, you see. I mean, I have had many people told me things which sounded negative, you know, and I don't believe what anybody tells me, because I mean, I'm trying to know myself. So who's anybody to tell me, or either who am I, you know, or what I am going to be capable of doing, you see? So, and that is something that I think that perhaps comes from that type of upbringing, that in a way, my family told me, you can do anything. You're able to do anything, you see? And,
Beautiful.
and that is how I arrived in the world. I was very frightened, I must say, when I came, because I saw a lot of things that I was not used to. But that is precisely after my grandmother died, which happened 4 years after my arrival. That's when I made the determination that no matter what, I was going to try to do something, to represent all of their efforts and to sort of like give back to their memories. And everywhere I go, in every interview and everything, I mention my grandmother and my mother and my family. And you probably saw at the Kennedy Center, they did a tremendous research. And that was when I really got very sentimental and emotional, because, I mean, all of a sudden, they had my grandparents on the screen, you see? And it's like I was thinking, my God, look what happened, you see? So, I mean, in a way, inside of me, I'm still a child, and I hear these voices that always accompany me. I mean, all the times where I have any kind of challenge, great challenge, these are the spirits I talk to, because, I mean, they gave me so much strength that even that they are not here in the physical form, I feel the strength as well. So therefore, I mean, this is what I've been able to do to survive. Sometimes, how the cruelty of how we treat each other sometimes, and how we judge each other, specifically when we don't feel well, and then we blame someone else, about things and things like that. I think that, I've tried to grow in a direction that is that has a certain type of peace, internal peace, and that's how I have been able to do it. I mean, people tell me whatever they want to tell me. I just look at them and say, really? That's it.
Yeah, beautiful. Words of wisdom.
Well,
Thank you for words of wisdom. Thank you for sharing.
mhm.
One question from Nicole, and this I'm glad she's asking it, because I had this was on my list also, but we have so much to cover, we can't cover everything. But about how did you, because I knew Mitchell, who you had worked with at Dance Theater of Harlem. How did Tanya enjoy working with the Dance Theater of Harlem?
Well, let me tell you something. Mitchell, I mean, we met within the year of my arrival in the United States.
Wow.
I didn't speak English, and but he heard me play the piano, and whatever he felt, he approached me, and he found the people that spoke Spanish, so they could explain to me what he was offering me to do. And he became like a brother. He became my family.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the man that the day that my grandmother died, he closed the office and came and stayed with me for the entire day in my home, because he wanted for me to lean on him, at a time where I was so weak. And he's the one that created this opportunity. He's the one that told me, Rise on Peace, I'm going to do a ballet. And that's how I really started seriously thinking about composition. We went to Europe. He said, you conduct the orchestra. And then, I mean, so in other words, he saw possibilities that I never thought, myself that I could do. And, he passed. It's going to be now close to 4 years. And I remember we were very close, very close. Because, I mean, on his way to the hospital, because he was having some troubles, he called me. He said, I'm going to the hospital, but don't worry, and don't come see me,
Mm-hmm.
The next thing that I know is I get a call that he has passed. So, I mean, to me, it was sort of like a way of saying goodbye, without telling me, because, I mean, we were that close.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, it's very touching. And one other question from MY. Hello, this is a fascinating discussion. Are there any other collaborations between Tanya and Devamir coming up? And I know that there are, but I'll let you talk about it a little bit.
Well, I have no idea. We have many, many musicians that we know in common, because it's like telling me about Rubalcaba. Next time you see him, mention it, and you will see the response. And same thing for Chucho. Chucho saw me grow up in a way.
Yeah.
A lot of these musicians that I loved. And I could say that Paquito de Rivera and I are like also members, like our family.
Yes.
He would come to my home. My grandmother would do cafecito, and after I left, he told me that he went fishing with my father. And the first trip that I came down, my father called him, and he gave me the surprise to come in, and he brought me a little Cuban shell, with the map of Cuba, painted on top. And I remember that I have it with me here. So
beautiful.
We graduated together, and then we never knew that we were going to actually be in another country and collaborating and doing all kind of things. So, in other words, these great musicians, it's like, for example, I was in Cuba only a few weeks ago, and one of the people that I went to see is a composer called Marta Valdés. And why? Because it was her, the one that when I graduated from the conservatory, she offered me my first job. She was actually working with a woman called Raquel Revueltas, in a theater called Teatro Estudio, and she was doing the music for incidental music for the play, and she needed a pianist, and she remembered hearing me play, and she called me and she said, "Come," and that was my first job. So now, when I go to Cuba, one of the people that I look for the time to actually see her and be with her for a little time. Yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So, but so we've got just 2-3 minutes left. So the one thing, I guess it's a good way to kind of maybe wrap things up, because you're going to be both you and Devamir will be coming to the Queen's Library November 9th.
Yeah.
In the afternoon, so approximately 2 o'clock to 2:30 range in the afternoon, and with Composers Now. And so I think this is a great way to maybe just tell the audience about how they can meet and hear this incredible music live, and basically it's free to the public. So can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, this concert is a concert that has a title. It's called Dialogues, because we introduced 3 composers. We play their music, and then after the pieces are played, then we have a dialogue, a conversation with an audience. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about, the technicality of what was in the page or anything like that. It's important for the audience to realize that a composer is a vital tool in society, you see, and that the music that we have been discussing from last century was written by all these people that we only see through photographs or pictures in a book. So to be able to have the possibility to discuss or talk about anything with a living artist, you see, in this case with a composer, is very important, because what the composers are doing this century are going to be discussed next century, the same way that we are discussing those that preceded us. So, and that's why that dialogue is very important, because, in that way, that conversation It could be a conversation about, fried rice. It doesn't matter. You see?
Mm-hmm.
But that is what actually captivate the audience, to see this human being that is just a person, and how this person is able to create those moments where that person can actually listen to something that is so poetic, in terms of music. And it can be any genre of music. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually recognized that this human being did that, you see.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So, Dave Ramir, so yeah, can you also tell us about your upcoming visit to the Queen's Library for Tanya's series, her dialogues at series?
Well,
Composers Now?
I'm excited to come back to Queens Central Library, especially with the invitation of Maestra Tania Leon. It's an honor. I'm gonna be introducing a piece of mine that is called Moving Forward. Moving Forward is the piece that is mainly the way I have been seeing New York City, and how I needed to blend in, but at the same time create my own mark of what made me different among the Cubans of my generations, among the pianists of my generations, and also the heroes that I admire. That have been a very conscious type of work of understanding my place as a black man in the United States, as a Cuban in the United States, as a young voice who have been screaming loud to be heard. And the career, it takes a lot of courage to be there, to be focused, to stay strong, to have a clear mindset of where you want to go, what type of music you want to defend. And if it doesn't, even though we absorb sounds from different other cultures because that's New York City, but ultimately we decide to have a voice, and that voice, we defend that voice at any cost. So I'm excited to perform this piece. This piece, Moving Forward, also have a little remembrance of the Cuban song La Guantanamera, which is a song that I have been definitely well introduced and well heard by many people around the world. But I made my own Guantanamera in a belonging and in a very personal way. So I'm looking forward for you guys to listen to, and Tanya, to hear my universe of how I embrace my own Guantanamera, as a Cuban man living in New York, in a very competitive type of environment.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I believe that I have been able to to have my own voice in my music, understanding the pillars that define me, that might be similar to yours, to Gonzalo, to Chucho, to the other, to David Vireles, but to Giovanni Terry. But at the end of the day, our voice, our compositions, our way of making music, what defines. So I'm looking forward to share that with you guys.
Wonderful. Sounds wonderful. Yeah.
Senor.
Yeah, so I guess that's a great way to conclude that we're going to have another great concert here through Composers Now collaborating with Culture Connection, and Dave Ramir will be here in person with Tanya, and so the audience can hopefully they can make it out on November 9th. And we'll have, the marketing materials should be ready in a couple of weeks that we'll be sharing with all of you. So, you can get them out there. But that's, I know we're going to be creating like an Eventbrite link. So, but it's totally free, to get like a free ticket through the Eventbrite. So that's coming up soon. So if anybody has further questions, they can check with Composers Now and queenslibrary.org. And so I can't thank you enough, both. This is such a great privilege and honor. I've known Dave Ramir now for close to 10 years.
Oh, man.
And yeah. And again, a little shout out also to Michelle Yom, who she connected us from Composers Now. So thank you, Michelle. So she helped
Yeah.
broker this deal, right?
Yes,
So,
absolutely, yes.
so thank you. And then, there's so many other people, Liz Keoghan here, and also Nicole here at the library, who's like a very, just a very positive energy, and many other people that just have this really great, energy. And so thank you all for being a part of this. And thank you, Eve, also for all your technical help with the social media, etc. Right? Because otherwise we wouldn't be on this little computer screen, right? Sharing with the world. So thank you all. And so we'll be, and again, so your book, your biography, Tanya Leon Stride, it's, can you guys see it here? Does it show up? Can you see it there?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So this is on order for our library collection, and we'll have it soon. So, and so maybe you can say, since we haven't, this is for Hispanic Heritage, maybe you could say goodbye to the audience in Spanish, have like a goodbye message, say something, in Spanish for our audience, and then, for our conclusion.
Yo estoy muy agradecida de esta oportunidad de poder hablarle a la comunidad que tanto quiero, porque a mí esto, Queens, no se me olvida. Pasé muy, muy buenos momentos allí. Allí también escribí unas piezas mías que son importantes en esa... o sea, es una comunidad que me ha dado mucha inspiración y a la cual yo regreso siempre. Cada vez que quiero sentirme más como gente de pueblo, ¿no? Y nada, estoy agradecidísima de esta oportunidad y espero que en noviembre 9 podamos conocerlos, o sea, aquellos que vengan y podamos tener el diálogo, que es lo que de eso se trata, ese tipo de concierto. Y para mí es un honor el maestro González, colaborar con él y ya hablamos de que tenemos muchos amigos y muchos colegas en común y nada, lo más probable es que ya después de ese evento podamos hacer cosas más cercanas y tener ideas de cómo colaborar aún más.
Sí, señor, sí, señor. Oye, familia, same. Muchas gracias por la invitación. Los veo pronto. Thank you, Dan, for the opportunity. I will see you guys on the 9th of November. Okay? Sí, señor. Maestra, God bless.
Bueno, maestro, gracias.
Muchas gracias.
Ajá.
Señor.
Chao.
Chao.